help to take care of the younger children.
Every Duggar has at least one buddy. If you're too old to need help from a buddy, that means you're ready to take on a younger buddy. A big buddy helps you get dressed, brush your teeth, comb your hair, get your breakfast, do your schoolwork, learn to play violin, and sew. They're there to pick you up when you fall and keep track of you when you're out and about. Without the buddy system, this house might cease to a halt.
Hey everyone, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Thursday, March 9th, 2023. I hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to dive into a topic about the Duggars, but I was on my Instagram and online, and literally every story I've been seeing today is about Vanderpump Rules and a cheating scandal between two co-stars, and the third co-star had no clue what was going on, the girlfriend. And I posted a couple things on Instagram simply because I was like, whoa, why is this story everywhere? Do you watch these types of shows? I have never watched it because I remember trying to watch this show like in the very beginning and it felt really fake. And I was like, this show is so fake. But apparently Tom Sandoval cheating on his girlfriend Ariana is like the worst news ever. And the co-star Raquel, who I guess her real name is Rachel. Yeah. But I found out about it by watching the Juicy Scoop, and I kept seeing Heather McDonald post stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Have any of you been sucked into a scandal that you didn't even know who these people were before, and then you find yourself 3 hours later down the rabbit hole and you're like, how did I even get here? Yeah. So I guess he cheated on his girlfriend with this other girl who is also her friend, and they found out about it last week, and she found out about it by finding some inappropriate messages, videos of the two of them, very inappropriate. Poor thing. And now everyone is like blowing up about it over on Instagram and on Facebook and like literally all over the tabloids. So anyways, so Tom Sandoval cheated on his girlfriend and the whole world is blowing up. So who knew? I remember him from like the very first season and I thought he was gross then, and this behavior is still gross today. So on to the next grossness, let's talk about what's going on with Jana Duggar, because listen, you guys, Jana got a new house, and it's not really a new house. It's literally right out the patio door from the Duggars. And it got me thinking about the wider compound and what the Duggars are doing with their compound and how they have all their kids living on the compound. And then I want to talk a little bit about Jill Duggar and how she's kind of backsliding a little bit because she had been previously sending her son to school, public school, and she has now taken them out of public school and she is back to homeschooling. Now, it could be because they moved like right before the school year. I'm not sure, but she had been very proudly sending Israel to kindergarten, first grade, and now suddenly he is being homeschooled. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Before we dive into today's topic, please do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button down there. If you have a comment, please say something. Click on the bell if you want to get notified of any time I go live or new content loads, and share this video with your friends. Do any of you watch the Juicy Scoop or listen to the Juicy Scoop podcast? I love it. So I was literally listening to her podcast this morning and I was like, oh, I need to know everything about Tom Sandoval. And I don't really even care about these people. And then you end up in a 4-hour rabbit hole, and now here I am and it's late filming this video for you. Anyone? Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I let you guys know that Jana Duggar had been moved out. Well, the story I got from a Duggar brother was that she moved out 2 years ago, and then it turned into, well, maybe it was last year. And then I realized and I found out that she's actually living in this tiny, tiny house behind the Duggars' property. Now, the house is like a mobile home, and Jana lives there independently. And in the middle of everything that was going on with Ginger's book, they started filming Jana inside her tiny home, almost like they wanted the public to ignore the fact that Ginger had said that even if you're 40 years old, you can't move out on your own. Now, in fairness, Jana is not 40. I believe she's 33, but most 33-year-old women, at least in today's day and age, if they are not married, generally live out on their own, whether they have roommates or a boyfriend or whatever. It's 2023, and most women don't live at home until they graduate or until they, find a husband, unless you're in conservative fundamentalism, or there is a subsection of people that are, the millennials and the Gen Zers that are staying home longer because of the cost of living, which I can understand. But this is Arkansas, and the cost of living isn't that expensive, and they're in an oppressive cult. So I did some looking at the Duggars property, and it looks like Jana and the property that she's in, a little structure that she's living in, is a tiny, tiny house. It looks like it's a mobile home. It's a single wide. And when James Duggar shared a video on his stories inside the group, you could tell that there wasn't a ton of room. But this also could coincide with, during the same period, Jana starts wearing pants. So she feels like, I have my own tiny house, even though it's on my dad's back doorstep, I'm going to wear pants now. So Jana wears pants now, and she's going to like events with Jessa and Ben to like Reformed doctrine. And so the Reformed people, the Reformed Baptists, wear pants. The women's wear pants. It's still a pretty legalistic belief system, but as far as Jana leaving the doctrine of the IBLP, I doubt it. But what this means is that even though Jana has her own tiny house, she is still under the authority of her dad. And I don't know if Jana's not aware that she can move out. I don't know if people have talked with her that she could move out. I don't know if it's just that she's scared. I don't know if she's just happy there. But the problem is that when you grow up believing that you can't leave, and if you do leave, something damaging and horrible is going to happen if you like walk outside of the umbrella of authority, she could just be scared. And that's a lot of fear to live under. Now, when Jim Bob bought the property in Arkansas, his plan was to, have all of his kids buy an acre from him and build a house. And at this point in time, he has so many kids living in this area, it's redonkulous. So he has like a bunch of acreage, and he has Jason living in a treehouse. He has James living in a warehouse. He has Joseph and Kendra living in the log house that used to be Mary's old house, his mom. He has Jana Duggar and Jeremiah living in a camper, but they're apparently going to get the house that Jessa and Ben just moved to the property. So Jessa and Ben donated the house that Josh and Anna lived in, Ben and Jessa lived in, and now Hannah and Jeremiah are going to live in. How many Duggars are going to live in this house? I want to know. Like, it's pretty wild. So they are moving the home onto a big piece of land, and that's across the street. And I guess that's where Jeremiah and his wife are going to live. But Josiah and Lauren are also looking to move like across the street. And then you have Jed and Katie live in a home that's owned by Jim Bob Duggar. And even John and Abby's trailer that they have is on property owned by Jim Bob Duggar. So pretty much all of his kids that are still in Arkansas, except for Austin and Joy, and now Jessa and Ben, are in property either owned by Jim Bob or on Jim Bob's property. Nothing sounds more like I'm building a compound than what's been happening in the Duggar land. So Jim Bob still has control of his kids. They're still making money for him. He's taking them out of the country. He's got you all watching like all the stuff that James is posting, and it's just a big fat distraction. So no, Jana has not been running away or breaking free. She's still flat out underneath his control. So the next thing that I was going to talk to you about is Jill Duggar. So there's been some discussion because Jill Duggar Dillard is now living over in Siloam Springs, which is like 45 minutes from where the Duggars live. And it's sort of like in the north, it's sort of on the border of Arkansas and Oklahoma. And then Derek is working as a district attorney in Oklahoma. Attorney, and he does mostly criminal cases. So as he's been working at his position in Oklahoma, Jill, instead of sending the boys to school, has opted to start homeschooling. So fans started noticing that Jill has been posting photographs of her kids during the school day where it appears like the boys are going places with her. So she went to the courthouse to see Derek with her boys. She's taken her kids to do different activities during the school day with her boys. And she's now taking the approach where she is no longer showing their faces and only sort of showing the backs of their heads, kind of the same position that her sister Ginger has taken. But it's an interesting turnaround because it was only a couple years ago that Jill made the like humongous, momentous decision to send the kids to school. So it's a little bit like wondering, did the school not go to her expectations? Did she feel uncomfortable sending them to a new school, not knowing a lot about it, being that they had just moved? And I believe that Samuel would be in kindergarten this year, so it means both boys are no longer in public school. And Derek is a graduate of high school. He's a graduate of a public university, and he's a graduate of a public law school. So I'm trying to sort of wrap my mind around how someone goes from being totally on board with school to pulling them out and doing homeschool. And I really hope that it's only a temporary move, because the IBLP's education for kids is not very good. You know, as much as you guys love the Duggars and as much as you love watching the girls sort of break free from things, they were not pushed academically to be and do much of anything. Their job and their role growing up was to be a mom, and they basically raised their siblings. So most of their education is GED equivalent, but it's like barely, you know what I mean? Like most of the friends that I've talked to with the Duggars, these kids don't have very high mathematics. They don't know a lot about actual like science. They're taught very basic, rudimentary, you know, information, and it's all skewed based on the IBLP and programs that don't provide like a full gamut of education. So my concern is that by pulling the boys out, they're going to be getting an education from a mom that her education wasn't the best. So I hope it's only temporary. But fans did start to notice that she started to pull back and the kids seemed to be not in school. And so I did reach out to someone and said that I asked if she's homeschooling, and they said yes. So I have nothing against people that homeschool. I have nothing against homeschool curriculums. My concern really is just the lack of education that the girls received and then going on to teach their own kids without their own proper education. You don't have to have, in the state of Arkansas, a bachelor's degree to homeschool. There's not requirements around that. She can use a ton of different curriculum. She could be getting guidance from people at her church. She could be getting guidance for some of her friends. Who knows? I just hope at some point she considers either a Christian school or public school for her kids. That's just my opinion. I think it would be healthy for them. Some of you guys in the comments will be, I'm a homeschooler, she'll be fine. Katie, you're being overwhelming. To me, it's just sort of a backslide, but old habits die hard. So as Jill is sort of finding herself back in the patterns of being back in the homeschooling world, she is sort of not, I guess, as free as we would like to think of her. I mean, she is free. She doesn't go to the same church as the Duggars. She doesn't participate in the IBLP. And certainly the boys that she's homeschooling are not getting IBLP curriculum. They're probably getting regular whatever they use for homeschooling. So at least they'll get a better education than she did. Another interesting thing is that Ginger and Jeremy said that they might consider putting their kids in school, to which, you know, the really interesting thing I find about these groups is that they really do a disservice to the education system. And my son is in public school. I went to public school. I graduated from public school. I went to a public college. My husband went to a public school. Like, they're not perfect by any means, but I feel like they're also not horrible. And not everyone goes to public school, but I feel like these groups really demonize the public schools so much so that it makes people afraid to even consider it as an option, which is sad. Now, Arkansas also doesn't have the best rankings for public school, and a teacher at the middle school, I think in the city that they live in, was recently arrested for child SA. So that could make a whole nother issue of not having your kids in public school. The school that they were at before they moved was where Derek went, and so maybe they felt more comfortable. I'm not sure. But maybe in time, as she gets more comfortable where she's at, she can find a school for her kids there. So that's just my little commentary about Jill back in school with her kids, or back doing homeschool with her kids. So beyond that, you've got Jana that's living in a tiny home, and Jim Bob still believes she's property of his until she gets married. And Jill goes back to homeschooling, and we still don't have an answer on Josh Duggar's appeal, and Anna is still banned from seeing Josh. So tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.